Okay, you guys. So I am really, really excited. Today's episode is actually a very time sensitive one, and I will make sure to let you guys know this as soon as it comes out as well, so you can be sure to listen in the first couple of days of it dropping. But this episode is specific to the interesting portal that we are currently in, this eclipse portal, which technically started on September 17th and goes through a week from today, October 2nd. But it's bigger than that, and we're going to talk about that. And everything that we're going to speak about today, I do, if you're driving, then just take it in and you might listen a second time and then take some notes. But if you are at a place where you can pause and take notes, probably a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today are things that you're going to want to then sort of go inside about and see how they apply specifically to you and your life and your evolution during this time, because we're all evolving at a rapid pace as human beings during this special time. And I have a very special guest for y'all today, Miss Jenette Traverson. She's actually a member of my alchemy membership. I think that's how we first met. And I've done some readings for you. And it was so crazy because in the last Zoom that we had, the last one-on-one Zoom, at the very end, Jenette just paused and she was like, I have to tell you this. This just came through. And she gave me some very personal updates and information. And I might talk about it publicly later, but this lady is incredibly gifted. We're all intuitive, but she has been tapped in for a really long time now and is definitely a healer, a guide, an intuitive, however you want to call that, definitely has psychic abilities. And so I wanted to gift all of y'all her presence during this very important time period so that you can have a little bit more clarity, so that you can feel held a little bit, and then so that you have her information in case you're in need of her services during this time. But welcome to the You Do Woo podcast, Jenette. We're so excited to have you.
Oh, thank you, Allison. I'm so excited to be here and just it's we've had so much fun talking on our Zoom. So this is going to be I'm really looking forward to sharing and connecting and just diving into some of this really amazing energy that's going on right now. It's big stuff for all of us.
Yes, yes, it is. Okay, so give us a little bit of your story. I know you better than everybody else listening right now. We're going to put all of your information, your Instagram, your website, all of that in the show notes. So be sure to take a peek at that. Give Jenette a follow on Instagram. But Jenette, when did you first know that you had these gifts? Tell us, from as young as you can remember to present day, a little bit about you and your earth school journey so far.
Well, it's interesting. So for me, my first remembrance was about 4 years old. I really believe that I was tapped in and dialed in long before that, of course. But at 4 years old is where I became really aware, really just a sense of knowing. But what was interesting is that it didn't seem like everyone around me had it also. So then I was kind of in that place of, how do I talk about this? Because I would just, as a kid, you just kind of blurt things out and say things. And then I was about 5 years old and I was in the kitchen and I was eating breakfast. And all of a sudden, I saw my great grandmother and she was kind of just like weaving and dancing around. And I just, as a little kid, I wasn't afraid, wasn't scared, and I just saw this figure just dancing around, and she just was just so happy and so at peace with everything. And she just said, "Tell your mom that I love her."
Mm.
And then she just kind of like went up, and I got up and I started, and she told me she was dead. She was passing over. And so I started dancing around in the kitchen going, your grandma's dead, and I was just dancing around. And my mom is like, what are you saying? What's going on
Yeah.
here? And I was just like, uh, immediately as a kid, you get that sense of like, okay, this is not a good thing. And she says, she goes, if you're saying she's dead, that's something we don't talk about. And she goes, don't say anything. And I just, as a child, I felt like, oh, but yet I knew what I saw. And so I just kind of got my stuff and went outside to go play. About 30 minutes, she came looking for me and she wanted to know how I knew what I knew. And again, I told her, well, she had just gotten a phone call that
Mm-hmm.
her grandmother had passed
Mm-hmm.
and she wanted to know the details. And so that started for me the beginning of many relatives, people that we knew close, when they were going to pass, they became ill. And because of that first experience, I wasn't scared.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very natural and normal. It wasn't other than my mom, who was raised in the South, and it was kind of this taboo thing to talk about death and anything seeing spirits. And so I just knew that it was as natural as breathing. It was just so, um, there was nothing that, I mean, even if I think that there were times if I had thought about turning it down or turning it off, I don't think I could have because it was so
Mm-hmm.
strong and so clear. And I had this incredible angelic team around me at all times. And that's what I remember earliest on. They were always there. They were always comforting me. They were always, and also in a really kind of light and playful way. If something happened, and if someone told me something, particularly a parent, would say something to me, and I just knew in my skin that didn't feel right. And I would go to my bedroom, and that's where I pretty much convened and connected with my angels, and they would just go, "Oh, dear one, no, 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 no.
Mm-hmm.
No. Just let that go. Just let that go. It's not your truth." And so that happened a lot for me. And so there were things that I knew that were going to happen. I would see things. A lot comes to me and is downloaded in my dream time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I could go to sleep and I feel like that's where I go to school. That's where I go to these mystery schools. That's where I go for these downloads and this knowing of different healing techniques and how to work with energy. So a lot of it comes in dream time. And I think there's a lot of wisdom and access there that is very comfortable that in the everyday world, we just didn't have. And I didn't really know who to ask or who to turn to. So my guides communicated really strongly that way, which was really incredible. And for me, that gift continued to grow. I could think about something, want to know about something, set the intention and ask and be shown in my dream time. And so I learned to be very comfortable in that world. And it's something where for me, always being tapped into, if you want to grow your intuition, you want to strengthen those psychic abilities, you need imagination. You
Mm-hmm.
need to be able to imagine, you need to be able to tap into that realm. And that was something that was always very natural and very easy for me. And so from that place, everything just always grew and expanded. And I just found over the years, knowing things, seeing things, stuff that was happening that became clearer and stronger for me that there was just no doubting or turning away from it. And I didn't want to because it felt so good to know. And at times I would be able to assist and help others. Um, and it just continued to get stronger. And I remember as a young adult being a mom and just knowing things. I knew with both my pregnancies that I was going to have a boy and then I knew I was going to have a girl. And everybody be like, oh, no, you're carrying this, you're doing that. I'm like, no, no, I'm not. No, I'm
Yeah.
not. Because at 11, I was told I would have a boy and a girl in that order.
Well,
And so I, I just always knew. And it was just when you know, and you can't unknow it. And I found that as I got older, that gift got stronger and stronger. And I worked in corporate and I did the traditional, 9 to 5 kind of job and did sales and marketing and did all of that. But I kept getting this nudge that it was time to start working with my gifts. And I was really frightened because I was a single mom and like, how can I make a living? How can I be afforded enough money to take care of myself, my son's being a single mom? And then one day at work, I injured my back and I was out on disability.
Mm,
And so then all of a sudden I heard, we're doing it for you. And
mm,
it was like, oh boy, okay, here we go. But I was being told over and over and over that I needed to do this. And so I then at that point knew I couldn't go back and do the kind of work that I was doing. And they put me through this whole program to figure out through workman's comp and what have you, like, what else are you good at? And so then I talked about what I wanted to do, and it was basically working with healing and helping others. And I put a whole plan together for them, and it was literally to get my certification as a Reiki master, my certification and training as a clinical hypnotherapist. And they had never done anything like that before. So they were just like, well, we don't know. This is kind of an unusual thing that you're asking for.
mm.
But according to the vocational testing, it was exactly what I was supposed to be doing.
Whoa.
And so at that point, I knew that it was time. Everything fell into place. I got the training, the certifications. I began working and healing my back because I had herniated disc in my back. And that began that whole process of showing me how powerful we are as a healer. And that when we listen to our body and we follow that intuition and that innate knowing, it's amazing what we can do. It's amazing what can happen. And so I did acupuncture, I did some chiropractic, I did a lot of intuitive, energetic work. I had studied different healing trainings. And so that was kind of all coming online for me. And from that place, everything just really opened up. And that's when I started my practice. I took that leap of faith and never looked back, never looked back. And I find that over the years, these gifts of being able to see, to see the parts of an individual that can't see for themselves, maybe because they're blocked, and the parts of them where maybe there's trauma, they've been or believe they're a victim to their circumstances and what's gone on. And I find that's definitely one of my very powerful places that I can help assist them to look at things differently
Mhm,
and how to have a different perspective. And from that place, they free themselves. And from that place, they tap into their heart. And from that place, it just opens up everything that they've been waiting for. And I noticed many, many years ago that just, gosh, this was probably about 15, 20 years ago. I had this fascination with the new moons, the full moons, the eclipses, and then I found out that I was born about a day or two after a new moon eclipse. So eclipses are strongest the day of, the 3 days before, and the 3 days after.
okay.
So no surprise that I was feeling eclipses so strong, but they started coming in very, very strong. And I got guidance to start doing new moon and full moon meditations, but especially eclipse healings to help people work with the energies of each of the new moons and full moons that were going on. And we know that the nodes of the moon change, and therefore it changes the energy of what we're working with
Mm,
during that 2 year cycle. So I found that to be really powerful and amazing sessions with everyone. And so now what I do is I still offer those sessions, but I also offer the new moon, monthly new moon and full moon meditations, and then also the eclipse meditations as well, which are so powerful because when we tap into that energy, it's amazing what we can access within ourselves. And there's this deeper knowing that we have, and it's just about giving ourselves permission to go there. And it's nice now because, I've been doing this for about 25, 30 years, and so there's definitely a lot more awareness, a lot more talk, these type of podcasts,
mm,
everything going on that helps us have that connection. But I know that when I'm working with someone, I have this ability and this gift because I've done some shamanic work and I've worked with Navajo medicine men,
mhm,
doing some hands-on overnight prayer ceremonies and going into traditional overnight ceremonies where working with an individual that would come in and they would have a trauma. They would have something that had been occurring in their family. And oftentimes, this is an ancestral thing. And this is something that has been carried and passed on in their family. And one of the gifts that I have, they would refer to it as a crystal woman. And this is one who walks between the dimensions, one who can go in and go into those places and see and access the past events, the past life events. And so that is something that I've actually been able to bring forward and offer in my work. So a lot of what I can do is also connecting and seeing not only lifetimes that you've had, but how you've been impacted by ancestors. And that
Mhm.
could be on your mother's side, your father's side. And sometimes these are lifetimes, which are going to be a different set of parents. So it's really interesting and fascinating. But who you are now, that story, that knowledge is recorded in your acacia, your book of life. And
Mhm.
you carry that knowledge and that knowing in your DNA. And these stories and this knowing lives inside of you. And when you're ready to tap into that, it's amazing what you can discover about yourself. This knowledge and knowing is accessed through the heart. And that's what I find, especially for myself. I'm a Leo. And so for me, everything comes from the heart. Everything is all about just love, and not that emotion love, but the
Mhm.
frequency of love and
Yeah.
tapping into that wisdom, tapping in, going into the heart and going up into the heart and accessing that knowledge and that knowing that our souls carry. And when we get out of the head and we can get past all of what the ego wants us to think and believe, and we go into the heart, that's where we tap into our truth. That's where we access the wisdom and knowledge that we're ready to bring forward. These eclipses that we're working with right now are all about tapping into the mastery
Mm.
that is within you and ready to be awakened, ready to be accessed and experienced in your life. But that also means that you got to let go of the old beliefs. You got to let go of the old stories. You got to let go of the old programming. And sometimes that's where it gets a little tricky, but it's doable if you're ready.
I love it. Okay, just random question, and I don't even know if this matters, but I've felt led to ask you this. What do you remember what year it was that you had the workers' comp situation where you hurt your back and like went through that whole pivot?
Let me think here. I want to say it was around 95,
Okay.
1995, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was around 1995.
It's so interesting. I have like a few periods of my life where it felt like there were shifts. And I don't know if this was a collective thing or maybe it just has, I don't know, like things in common. 1995, late summer of 1995 was one of them. And then again, 2002, 2012, and 2020. Those were all like very intense, like almost timeline jumps in life for me. Really, really crazy. So I didn't know if maybe I thought you were
Mhm.
going to say 2002 for some reason, but 1995 was one of those for me as well. And at that time, I didn't even know. I mean, I didn't start tapping in until into the importance and the meaning of eclipse portals until 2018 or so. And really more intensely 2020, once I started teaching about human design and all of that, was when I really started paying attention to the eclipses and when they started and ended and all that kind of stuff. But at one point, a couple years ago, I went in my journals and wrote down all of the like really big life changes and events and things like memorable things that happened in my life, and almost all of them, if I had any manipulation in them, then they were just different dates. But if it was like something that sort of like the universe brought me, it was almost always during an eclipse, whether that was like the April-ish time or the October-ish time. And I know it's different
Mhm.
every year with
It is.
that sort of 6 week period. But almost all of them were in one of those portals And it's
Hmm.
a little bit wild to, and I didn't
It
even
is.
believe any of this stuff during those years, like why
Mhm.
why is that?
Well, when you think about eclipses, what is ready to be eclipsed from your life? And so it's literally going to remove you or remove something that is no longer serving you, no
Hmm.
longer aligned. And it's almost like your life path, your soul path. What I've been shown when I'm working with people is that you have predestined events that you wanted to make sure you stayed on track on your timeline. And so if you were kind of going off in left field and not really following what you wanted to create and do in this lifetime, then your soul set up these different events to get you back on track.
Hmm.
And so it kind of course corrects you. But eclipses, from what I've been taught, is that eclipses, if a good way to think about it, because we call them a wormhole passageway, is that it's like you go into an elevator and you're going to go up the elevator. You put in whatever floor you want to go to. You would say you want to go to the eighth floor, and then all of a sudden the elevator stops. But instead, with a wormhole eclipse passageway, the eclipses, these are sideway elevators.
Mm.
So what you think is your destiny to take you to this level, it's actually taking you across on your timeline and dropping you to a new part of who you are right where
Hmm.
you are. So
Hmm.
we call that the sideways elevator. And it's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing because the thing that happens is that all of a sudden then the elevator opens and you come out and you go like, wait a minute, wait a minute. It's so natural for us in our human conditioning that we will start to judge or go like, what did I do wrong? What's happening? What's going on? Rather than just opening up, what is this here to show me? What's the gift in this?
Hmm.
And so we go a lot of times into our old programming. And so with eclipses, it's literally taking you to exactly where you need to be,
Hmm.
although it doesn't feel like it always. And
Hmm.
sometimes it can be a little uncomfortable, and sometimes it can feel really great. So it's just a matter of, again, staying open and not judging it or going into any old self-critical parts and places of us, because oftentimes eclipses are clearing that out too.
Hmm. I was just talking with the other gals in alchemy this morning on our group Zoom, and we were talking about the difference for us. And I know everybody's very different with what they're experiencing right now, but the difference for us this eclipse season versus like the one in April that happened. The one in April for me was very intense, very uncomfortable, a very big ego death situation. And oh, I just like literally one of the most uncomfortable month months of my life, honestly,
Yes.
in a lot of ways. But at the end of it, there was such an up leveling that it felt like I had then jumped timelines at the end of it. And then this
Mm.
eclipse season so far, and I know we're just a few days into it, um, is quote knock on wood a little bit more gentle for me, but it's almost like all internal stuff of looking in the rear view mirror, but not in a bad way, being like, ooh, look who you used to be and how completely different you are now. And it's this feeling of just like
Yeah.
gratitude and being held. And there's not a whole lot externally shifting or changing or like being real intense, I guess. There's not a whole lot of like the rug being pulled out under me or anything like that so far. I'm also like unattached. I'm okay if something like that does happen. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm like
Exactly.
whatever's like take like God take away what's not serving my highest self, and I sort of put that intention out there, so I'm okay with that. But it feels much more soft and nice internally. Maybe collectively there's going to be different things that will be going on, shifts
Mhm.
and pulling out the rug and all of that kind of stuff, but for me it feels like a moment of gratitude for how far I've come, and really like seeing that like hindsight is 2020 and being like, oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't work out that way. Thank you, God, for taking care of me. That, like, I'm glad this all worked out this way, even though it was very uncomfortable going through the past 20 years of ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. So
Right.
that's what that vibe is sort of for me right now.
Well, and I think back, if you look back in the ones that we had in May, April and May, we're in an 8 vibration year. So that has a lot to do with it. And then this is a year of, 8 is infinity, it's limitless potential. And we're actually wrapping up on this eclipse coming up on October 2nd, is wrapping up the Aries and Libra axis, which is
Hmm.
the relationship axis.
Whoa,
And
yeah.
so that whole polarity is all around basically knowing thyself. And
Hmm.
it is that whole awareness around, are you looking forward or are you stuck in the rear view mirror? Because if
Hmm.
you're stuck in that rear view mirror, so it's perfect that you said that. If you're stuck in the rear view mirror, you're going to be that, it's going to keep you on that feedback loop. And
Hmm.
you're just going to keep repeating and doing and getting what you've always gotten. And if you were really being mindful, aware, and open, the eclipses back in April were really bringing the energy of, it's time to know who you are, it's time to access it, it's time to remember what you came to deliver and bring as the gifts of who you are. It's
Hmm.
time to tap into that mastery. It's time to know that there's so much more you can do, be, and have if you're open to it and if you will allow it. But it meant letting go of the old stories, the old patterns. And for some people, it was the upbringing
Hmm.
that they went through, the things that they've learned. And it meant going against the grain of society, of others. It meant going against the grain of their parents, for some people, even their partners,
Hmm.
because it meant that you were being asked to not be part of the herd and follow the cattle where everybody else was going, but to trust and listen to yourself
Hmm.
and know that own innate knowing that is coming up through you. And it can't be contained any longer. It's got to be expressed and it's got to be delivered in a way that you promised you would do for this lifetime. Your
Hmm.
soul knows it's a frequency that you have that lives inside of you that is now ready to be expressed. It's ready to come online. And if you, it's almost like if you try to do it any other way, it feels uncomfortable to be in your skin.
Hmm.
It's almost like you take steps and you start doing it and you're like, ah, this does not feel right.
Hmm.
Or the universe comes along and sets you back on the right path.
Hmm.
So it's always best that when we can sense and feel it and dial into it and be open, then it just magically will start to reveal. And you can always, this is a thing that I always share with my clients, is that when it seems like things are coming in so hard, so intense, and sometimes we do need that, but if it's a lot, you can literally talk to your higher self and say, hey, God, source, universe, whatever you're most comfortable calling that, I need a little bit of an adjustment here with that.
Hmm.
Maybe not so intense. Can
Hmm.
you just like dial it down a little bit in a way that I can now process and digest it?
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's always possible. We often think that we're at the beck and mercy of whatever is happening, and instead, you're the sole architect of your life. You're the one who's directing, you're the one who's creating, you're the one who's designing. You
Hmm.
created and planned this entire life before you came into it.
Yep.
And so, and we're changing as we go along. We're
Yep.
adjusting as we go along. We're upgrading, we're elevating, and we're opening up to more and more and more because we're ready. And as the energies present themselves, new frequencies, new awareness, new knowledge, we acclimate to that.
Hmm.
And so I believe the eclipses, they happen about every 6 months, usually come in pairs. Every now and then they'll come in threes, and those are always a doozy.
Hmm.
But it's always an energy that helps to reset, recalibrate, and help us to adjust. Just like we just had the autumn equinox, a balancing point.
Mhm.
All of those are all, I mean, so divinely orchestrated, that we have these ways to remember, to check in, to find the balance, to find the harmony, and really work with those energies rather than just like, oh, it's hocus pocus.
Mhm.
It's not. It's not. It's all divinely planned.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm realizing too, why sometimes eclipses have been so jolting for me is that for so long, my nervous system was used to chaos and drama. Like
Mm.
that is what was normal for me. And so it's almost like you said, we're the architect of our own life. So I was calling in changes that were pretty intense and jolting and and drama
Right.
filled and chaotic and whatever. And now that I've gotten my nervous system used to peace, and when
Hmm.
it's chaotic or dramatic, that doesn't feel normal to me.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, that's what I'm creating is more peace.
Yeah. And I think that when we're younger, we kind of look for that excitement
Mhm,
and we kind of look for that energy. And then as we mature and as we grow and we get more comfortable in our skin, we begin to recognize that there's so much more
mhm,
and that it's okay to have those moments and those times where it feels like things are falling into place and it's not crazy.
mhm,
We can always, again, adjust whenever we need to. And it's
mhm.
just remembering that you have it's it's your it's your divine right to do so,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's oftentimes it's just a matter of shifting and changing your mindset, just a little pivot. That's all
Mhm,
it is. And just really being mindful of what you're saying, because at all times, the thing I find when I'm working with anyone, especially that has an illness or disease, is that what are you saying to yourself? How are you talking about your body? How are you talking about, and what are you believing about the things that are happening in your life? The
mhm,
cells of your body are listening at all times
mhm,
because sometimes it's not what you're saying out loud, it's what you're saying inside.
mhm,
It's the internal dialogue that's going on that can really jack you up. It can really just throw things off. And in my 20s, I had gotten cancer.
mhm,
And that was one of the big wake up calls for me. I had a little boy, a single mom, little boy about 7, 8 years old, and scared the you know what out of me because all of a sudden I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't part of the plan. What's
mhm,
going on here? And somebody I worked with said to me, what are you believing and what are you telling yourself? And I was like, what? What? He goes, what are you believing and what are you telling yourself? He goes, take a look at that. He goes, this is not the end of your life. He goes, take a look at it and really listen. And I did. And what it was is that I had enormous guilt and shame from going through a divorce.
mhm.
And all of that had settled inside of me
Yep.
and festered.
Mhm,
And so through that, I learned to forgive. I learned to
mhm,
love myself. I went back in and accepted that I made the right choice. It was the right choice for me and the right choice for my son.
mhm,
And in doing that, I went through the surgery, cancer was removed, and I didn't do chemo, I didn't do any of the other stuff. I did everything from a very much holistic place. And and that took me on a whole another path to understand and know how that can happen so that now to be really mindful of what we say even when no one's listening. What are
mhm.
you doing when no one's watching?
Yeah.
Because all of that has an effect on you and all of that comes through. So I've now had the opportunity to work with many people that have been in similar situations. And even my father, about, gosh, it's been probably about 20 years. I had been warning him, telling him, I need you to go to the doctors. I want you to go get these specific tests done. There's something really wrong with your body. And you need to find out now. Because if you do it now, you can literally change everything.
Mhm,
And so he'd go to the doctor, and the doctor's like, no, you're good. You don't need those tests, and everything's fine. And so for about, gosh, it must have been about a year, I kept bugging him and telling him he needed to do this. And he says, oh, the doctor says I'm fine. Then one day at work, he collapsed at work. And then come to find out, he had this really rare cancer. And he was given, you know, he was given not really so much as a length of time to live, but basically that it was incurable. The
Mm-hmm.
type of cancer he had, there was no chemo out there that worked for it or anything. And so he knew about the healing work that I do. And so he came to me and he says, you know how long I have to live? And I said, because I was shown, and I said, yes, you have about 6 months. And he goes, okay. He goes, then I want to come to you as a client. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
really? And he goes, yeah, I want you to work with me because when I go, I want to have a clean slate. I don't, he goes, I've been through a lot in my life and I don't want to, I just want to go with a clean slate because he goes, I sure as hell don't want to come back and repeat any of this again.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, well, if you do though, I'm going to have to talk to you and treat you just like I would any other client. I said, I'm not going to call you dad. I'm going to call you by your first name. So when he and I would have sessions, I'd be like, hi, John, how are you doing? And we had it was a really powerful experience because I got to work with him, get to know him, but I also got to know what he went through
Mm-hmm.
and why he was carrying what he was carrying. But I also learned that when he was in the military, it's a strong likelihood that he was exposed to a lot of radiation
Mm-hmm.
because of where he was working in the military, without going into any details about
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And so that exposed him to a lot of that. And there had been many other people that had similar work experiences that had these really rare unknown cancers also. And so working with him, we worked on a lot of things and cleared that. And then he developed a tumor that was right on the sternum of his chest. And that it was to the point where it was literally eating away his sternum. And the doctor says, we've got to figure something out because if this continues, it's going to eat away your sternum and then your rib cage is going to collapse in on your lung and hearts, and a very painful, um, unfortunate way to go. And so then my dad came to me and he goes, okay, we now got to focus on that tumor. I need you to heal that tumor. And I'm like, at that point I went, Dad, I've not
Mm-hmm.
done that kind of work before. And he goes, you just don't remember that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was like, what? And he goes, maybe not in this lifetime, but within you. He goes, I was told and I was shown that you do. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, he goes, you just got to trust. And then all of a sudden, I was like, okay. And so then I went in and I talked to my healing team that I have. And then they said, he's right. You've done this before. It's just a different dynamic. And so I worked with my dad. I did about 2 or 3 sessions on him and primarily focusing on that. And and these were each about 30 to 45 minute sessions. And and I would check in with him, and these were spread out about 5 days apart. And then he one day I could see that it was shrinking, which was really good. And then one day he went to roll over on his side and the tumor burst open and all this fluid and everything spilled out of it. And what had happened is that everything that was sitting on top of it just completely emptied out. And you could see along the sternum, it had completely healed. And when
Mm-hmm.
he went back to the doctor was like,
What?
I don't know what she did or what, but
What?
he goes, keep doing this.
Yeah.
He already knew because he had other tumors inside of his body. He didn't want to go that way. He was just really clear. He goes, you know what? It's a lot. I've been through a lot. My body's been exposed to a lot. I'm okay that this is my time. He goes, I just didn't want to go that way, and I didn't want my family to witness that either.
Mm-hmm.
And he just said, thank you. And so he, had a really peaceful passing. I worked with him and helped him and guided him. And before he passed, he says, okay, you know what? When I'm on the other side, I'm going to send a bunch of people your way so you can help them too.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. That next year to 2 years, I worked with a ton of people with cancer,
Mm.
and I
Yeah.
knew my dad had sent them.
Yeah.
So it was wild. It's wild how things work out.
That's really cool. That's amazing. I bet you have so many really interesting stories from all the people that you've worked with over the past few decades. Okay, a few things just for everybody who's listening that I know that they are itching to hear about. Number one, the new moon is coming a week from today. And you're very big into new moon rituals, full moon rituals. What do you have specifically as just a recommendation for people to do over the next week in honor of and to utilize the energies of this new moon that we have coming?
Okay, perfect. So we just had the Pisces full moon eclipse, and that one is really there to show us the very things that are holding us back or limiting us in any way that keep us from knowing that we are these limitless, infinite beings. And so now, and that's actually giving us a preview of the eclipses that will start in the spring.
Mhm.
The one we have coming up on October 2nd is a Libra new moon solar eclipse. And that one is actually wrapping up and completing the series of eclipses we've been in for the last 2 years. And that's that Libra Aries relationship axis. So this Libra eclipse that we're going to have, the new moon, now, when we have typically for new moons, we think about writing out our intentions and things that we want to create. But with eclipses, we don't do that. With eclipses, it's really about just being present and really just being more in tune and in touch with what's going on and what you're feeling and whatever guidance is coming through for you. With this Libra eclipse, I would say this is working with relationship axis. It's really around relationships. It's around love. It's around beauty. It's self-care. It's self-love. It's about harmony and balance. And it's also being aware that Libra is the mirror. So whatever is happening inside of you that you're thinking, feeling, and believing is going to be reflected and show up in your world out here. So the Libra new moon eclipse is an opportunity to become aware and mindful of the lens in which you're operating from and creating and manifesting in the world.
Mhm.
So the thing that's going to be really helpful to do is to get just to take some time to sit down and just really write and reflect. What is it that you could do to be more mindful, more aware of where you need to take better care of yourself, where you need to nourish yourself, where you need to have healthy boundaries in place, where you go into extremes to the left or extremes to the right, extremes of not caring for yourself and extremes of caring for yourself. And so it's that kind of energy to find harmony and balance and peace with that. And so that you can get really clear, dialed in, because you can then make those adjustments when you know the things that you got to work on, the things that are coming up for you. And what you want to do is write those down. I'm going to be more disciplined with drinking more water. I'm going to be more disciplined to get to bed at a better hour each night to get enough sleep. I'm going to be more disciplined to have better boundaries in my relationships and how much output I give to everyone else and not enough to myself. And
Mhm.
so it's finding that harmony and balance because Libra's the scales. And
Mhm.
so it is that energy that represents the part of you where you recognize it's like doing better to be better
Mhm.
and how to honor that part of yourself. So if you write out some thoughts and then if you can do something that's really kind of cool is that you can actually record it because Libra is an air sign. So that speaking it in and using your breath is really powerful. So you could even write down some affirmations when you're really clear what's not working, then you write the opposite of it in like an affirmation. I am more aligned. I am so clear and so loving and celebrating how incredible I am today and every
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
And when you write that in your, and you write it out and you say it in your own voice and you can listen to it, it's really powerful before you go to bed.
Mhm.
Another thing that you can do is to just, if there's something you want to release, something that you're holding on to, and something that when you check in to see where you're feeling it in your body, and let's say you're carrying a lot of tension and stress up in your neck and shoulders. And so you just go into that part of your neck and your shoulders and you just really connect with it and ask, what is this from? What is this energy? Where am I feeling burdened? Where am I feeling overwhelmed or like I'm carrying so much, and identify there's too much output maybe to helping and taking care of others and not enough for yourself. Recognizing that and going to that part of your body and just really just loving and acknowledging that part of yourself, placing your hands there and connecting with it, and just really saying, thank you for everything you've been doing. I recognize that I've been doing just a little bit too much and carrying and holding on to a little too much. And then you just take a breath in and out. And then now you just invoke and connect with that frequency of love. And you breathe in that frequency of love right into the crown. And imagine it flowing all the way down to your neck, your shoulders. And you imagine it going through and just massaging and going to all those heavy, tight, tense places. And you just breathe and connect. And then you exhale and release it all the way down and out your arms, your fingertips, and just shake it out. And you connect to the breath and you just trace it all out, wipe it all out. And that really connecting to that breath, that deep part of you that has been holding and carrying that. And sometimes we've been holding and carrying it for a really long time, and you just breathe it out. And then when you'll feel it just getting lighter and just so much freer. Then you breathe in that frequency of love, and you go in and you fill up all those places with love and peace and joy. And then just kind of move around a little bit so you feel the fascia underneath those tight muscles just loosening up and releasing. And just breathe that in and out and just feel a sense of calm and flow and ease in your body. Libra's an air sign, so connect with your breath and honor that space within you. And Libra is so much about coming to the heart and tapping into the wisdom of the heart. And that's really, really huge right now. It's like getting out of our head and getting into our hearts and really listening to what our bodies are telling us.
I love that so much. I have so many things that just came through while you were leading us through that little visualization. One, do you do meditations and visualizations? Do you like have any recorded? Okay.
I do. I do.
I'm going to get that from you so people can go and access those if they want to in the show notes. So I'll make sure and get that from you. Two, oh my gosh, there's many different things that came through. One was, I forget where I heard this from, but I know that I heard from somebody that one of the eclipse portal like gifts that we're all receiving right now is the cosmic heart, where like every human is getting a new heart right now that's much more unity based and much, more soft, less hardened, all of that. So I thought of
Mhm.
that when you were talking about coming into the
Yes.
heart. And then another thing with just, I know there's a lot of women who listen to my podcast. And it's beautiful to be a woman and to know how to nurture other people and to help guide and love and take care of and whatever. But I do think that one thing we're all sort of waking up to now, and it's very much in alignment with what you're talking about, Libra and the scales. Like we don't need to go too far to the self-care thing to where I've done that, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm just going to be 100% selfish and take care of me, right? And
Mhm.
we go a little bit too far. But what if every woman that's listening just did 5% more on making sure her life force energy was intact and activated and coming through each day, whether that means saying no to things that don't light you up, having a little bit of time for pleasure and presence and doing things that feel good to you. Like I'm very big recently. This also has to do with another little download I got while you were talking. I'm very big recently into a lot of Natalia Rose's work, which I think she lives in Florida, but she's in Miami area. Um, The reason I say that, Jenette lives in Florida. She just moved a while ago from California to Florida, and she's in the Sarasota, Tampa area. So if you are near there, reach out to her, tell her, or if you know anybody that's awesome and in the woo woo world, please make sure they connect to Jenette in real life because she's out there. But I've been connected with so many people lately in Florida, which is nuts. I haven't been to Florida in a really long time. But Natalia Rose's work is really interesting as far as teaching on. She's not like a intuitive healer on your level. She does it a lot more through like the detox and the actual like
Mhm.
juicing and enemas and things like that. But she does teach a lot on your life force and your chi and prana
Yes.
and all of that kind of stuff. And I know that that sounds really woo woo. And even like 5 years ago, I don't know if I quite understood what that means. But as a woman, we're so depleted of
Yes.
most women are so depleted of that. And that's actually our main job in this world, is to hold life force energy. Not just about getting
Right.
pregnant and birthing babies.
Right.
It's like that creative or just satisfied um
Yeah.
pleasure seeking kind of and it's not the pleasure seeking of like quick dopamine hits. It's like the long lasting, right?
It is. It is. And it is that part of just coming back into, because we can't serve from an empty cup, and so it's really coming in and just, but this is the thing that's really interesting. It's coming back in and filling up your entire being and just sourcing yourself
Mhm.
and filling yourself up, but also remembering it's the physical activity of where we're often doing so much, or the mental where we just keep thinking and thinking and thinking that drains us. But we are constantly being sourced by God, universe, whatever you're most comfortable calling that. We're constantly being streamed and sourced with life force energy, but it's the belief that we have that we don't have enough, or
Yep.
there's so much going out. So
Yep.
sometimes that's also changing that mindset, but it also means that you've got to kind of walk your talk and be in alignment with it. And you've got to do the things that where you make a point to go to bed, you make a point to drink enough water, to hydrate, to eat healthy foods, to get out in nature and to ground. Grounding is also, that's a really big thing during these eclipses, is staying and being grounded. I literally have a grounding mat under my feet while
Hmm.
we're talking right
Hmm.
now.
Hmm.
And so it's so important that we take time to listen to what we need. Sometimes we just got to say no and we got to go for a walk, or we just got to say no and just step outside for a moment. Sometimes it's just, if you don't feel like it, why do it in that way that is not going to feel really aligned with you? So I think there's going to be a lot more of that coming up. This is an energy that, because it is the scales, it is the balancing of the masculine and feminine. And so it's really being mindful that you're not like in the feminine part, we're literally just being that creatrix energy where you're just feeling and loving and allowing all that creative force and energy to just radiate. And when you're in your masculine, that's the part where you take that, you get the ideas, you get the downloads, and then now you take action for it. But we've been programmed as women so much that we got so much into our masculine, and that's how we got so burnt out. So now we're kind of finding that harmony and that balance. So definitely recognizing where maybe you're doing, but not being. And
Hmm.
so with Libra, it is about being. It literally is being in that place and just sitting with it. I think that if you can allow yourself space and time to do that, then about a week or so, you're going to start to feel this energy coming in, because you'll feel fortified, you'll feel nourished at the
Hmm.
soul level. That's going to really help you step more into what's ready to start being launched and created in your life. But this whole wormhole passageway, the eclipses, will complete on November 1st with the Scorpio new moon. And that's when things will really start really coming to life.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, as we wrap up, I would love it if you could gift my listeners with a couple of intuitive downloads or some channeling of what's going to be going on collectively in this last quarter, October,
Okay.
November, December 2024.
Yes. So coming up for the remainder of this year, one of the things that's really, really important for everyone is to really check in and see and feel. And the only way you're going to be able to do this is to go into your heart because it's not going to come from your mind and your head, but to see what really feels right to you, what really aligns with you, what really feels aligned with you with any of your choices, any of your moving forward, anything that you're doing. This is an 8 vibration year, so it's expanding, it's growing, and it's helping you to access and to remember the mastery of who you are and what you came to do in this lifetime. And you're getting all these downloads, and so really pay attention to that. But we have so much going on in the world. There's all the politics, all the things that are going on. It's really about coming back to yourself, coming back to your truth, and tuning out everything else and just really honoring the space that you're in. This is going to be wrapping up the 8 vibration year. Next year, we're going to step into 9 vibration. And that's really going to be taking a lot of the downloads and everything that we've been getting this year, and then now being able to apply them and utilize that in your life. But it feels like in the coming months, it's really about allowing yourself to feel the new energy coming online. And what does that look like for you and how to adjust accordingly and do the things that really resonate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be really important. It feels to me like this is a time where we're setting up a whole new foundation, new systems, new ways of being around how we want to feel doing and being what's coming to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy where listening and allowing that guidance to come in so that you can actually then apply it and take action in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And we've gotten so busy with just busy, busy with everything, everything. It feels like it's an energy where you're tapping into and being more mindful, especially these eclipses right now and through, to November 1st. What is the old story you're telling yourself? Where are you stuck in old patterns? It's cleanup time. It's clean up and clear out and really just tap into and activate that part of yourself that's ready to celebrate and acknowledge because you can really create so much more of what you want. You just got to believe it's possible. So it's
Mm-hmm.
really stepping into and allowing what's possible.
I love that. This came through while you were talking. Just, I was thinking about what you were saying and trying to visualize it in my head. I'm, I don't know, I'm like a numbers person and I haven't always done great with my imagination and visualization. So that's one thing I'm tapping into more is like when people are talking, I'm listening, but I'm trying to visualize what they're saying in my head. And what came through while you were talking is it's almost like this time is, and this is a theme for me because we're looking for our next home and all of that kind of stuff. But it's almost like you have bought a new house and it is your dream house and you've moved all your furniture and you have everything organized and you're still for some reason sleeping in the old house. It's like, hey, you can get up and move to the new house now. We have
Yes,
a new house.
your
That's
time.
that's that's the like what I was picturing and feeling when you were talking about
Yes,
this
that's
time
perfect.
period.
That's perfect. It is really visualizing and allowing, giving yourself permission to imagine, to dream bold, to just like you're not limited in any way and just wild and big and as creative as you can be, that you're not limited
Hmm.
and have the life you desire.
Hmm.
Tap into what you desire, tap into how you want to feel and imagine it and see it and but also give room for it to be bigger and better than what you're thinking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Don't
it can
limit
come
it.
with grace and ease.
Ah, okay. I'm so excited for everybody to connect with you. Y'all get in the show notes right now. Go give Jenette a follow on Instagram, but also I would love for you to just share really quickly. I know you do one-on-one coaching for everybody can get very specific if they want healing, something to have to do with their health, an intuitive session if they're pivoting careers or something like that. You can sort of tailor things. And I know you do energy clearing in people's spaces, you do in-person sessions, online sessions. What is your what are you loving doing right now? When I'm listing out your offerings, what's your
Yeah, I'm
favorite?
really, really enjoying the coaching that I'm doing right now. The monthly coaching, I have different coaching packages. That has been pretty phenomenal, watching the shifts and changes that are happening. And I'm working with mostly women right now. And it is phenomenal to see the changes and the growth and the very things that they're manifesting that they talked about 6 months ago
Mm-hmm.
that are happening now. So that part is really powerful. Working with them on a monthly basis, and depending on which package a person wants, they get more involved work as well. That I think has been pretty incredible. And I tie that into the new moon and full moon meditation circles every month so
Oh,
that that way they're tied into the energies as well.
I love that so much. Well, you guys definitely check out all of Jenette's offerings. If you have any questions for her, I know she's great at DMing people back. You're on there and you personally answer people back.
Yes.
But you are a gift and I don't just, you are definitely a healer. You're definitely intuitive and tapped in. And I am incredibly grateful for you. I'm thankful that you're in my circle. And I'm so excited to introduce you to everybody that
Oh, thank
listens.
you. I love this. This has been so much fun. Wonderful. And I'm excited for the new house that's coming in for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm so excited. I will keep you guys updated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Bye. We'll see you next week, guys. Happy Eclipse Portal.